Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto had a quirk. A reluctant hero in training, but even the reluctant can become great, once they find their cause. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 9 Bird Shark Cannonball. Izuku's training was going well. Only a few months into the training, and Naruto was able to visibly see the massive amounts of improvements that had happened to the boy. His muscles had been ripped to shreds, and reborn into a new, slightly more macho, form than his starting point of, well, having no muscles. Izuku had cleared away over half of the beach of the garbage at this point, and by the time that January rolled around, the first 9 months of the plan would be over, leaving Izuku ready for his training in one for all to start. It would take about a month before the boy learned how to not fire off all of his punches and kicks at 100% power, something that was bound to happen considering the boy was quirkless and had no experience controlling a quirk. It would be harder for the quirkless to learn how to use something that those with quirks naturally knew how to use. Then again, his uncle was an exception to that rule. Seriously, you're just going to lay there, not even play in the water? Mina asked Naruto as she stood over him, looking down at him with a disappointed look, wearing her white frilled bikini just for him now. Originally, she had just wanted to show it off, but she had been waiting for this chance since they started dating. Honestly though, their dating life wasn't really different than what they did before, only they were a little more physically affectionate now. You enjoy the beach your way, and I'll do it my way. You're the one who wanted me to take a break from training more often, and that is what I'm doing. If I go into the water, I can promise you I'll start training. Naruto waved her off. She had her friends from her school here with them, so it wasn't like she was going to be lonely with him not playing around. She had 2 of her girlfriends, and the Kirishima guy that she had tried to introduce him to, and the guy seemed pretty cool for the most part. He had decent muscle on him, but other than that he was a pretty average-looking guy. He had light tan skin, with long black hair that covered a small part of his face, though all of his teeth were sharpened. The guy was a pretty friendly dude, and he was pretty enthusiastic about swimming in the ocean. Mina pointed at him. Gush over how cute I am. Oh Mina, you're so cute, so sexy, I can't take my eyes off of you, my heart is all aflutter, and my stomach has butterflies, please, allow me to look away so that my weak heart won't explode. Naruto closed his eyes as he went back to laying back. Her cheeks puffed out, and she kicked some sand onto his legs. See, I'm enjoying myself just fine, watching you have fun. Naruto cracked open one of his eyes and looked up at her. She stopped pouting and puffing at him, before she shrugged her shoulders with a smiling sigh. Guess they had different ideas of what it was like to have fun on the beach. You could have given me a compliment without being sarcastic. Mina lamented as she turned around and started to walk back towards the ocean, with Naruto sitting up and looking at her ass. That bikini makes your ass look just as sexy as it always is. Naruto called out to her as he laid back down. What was he going to say, that her ass only looked nice and practically nothing? She was always sexy, the bikini didn't really change how good looking she was in his eyes. Mina pumped her fist in victory. I'll take it. She would take that compliment in stride, not much he could really compliment her on when it came to her swimsuit without sounding like a pervert. Also, she had kind of goaded that out of him. She wasn't shy about her body, so no reason to get angry about a compliment. Wait up guys, I want to play too. Kirishima, get a bucket, we're making a giant sand castle. Naruto smirked. He then glanced back at Izuku, the boy was actually sending them all jealous looks. Like he wanted to join them, and Naruto was about to say something about it, before his fellow teen got back to work with a more determined expression than before. Okay, he's a pretty decent guy, he's got determination, and he can motivate himself. Naruto wasn't just laying down to relax, he was also doing it so that he could keep an eye on Izuku's training. It was moving along well, if the boy kept it up at this pace, he would actually finish the first 9-month part of the plan in only 8.5 months. That was, if he didn't push himself even harder than Naruto's plan was pushing him. Actually, in this heat, he should stay hydrated. Naruto opened up the cooler next to him, and grabbed a bottled water. Standing up, Regretfully standing up, he walked towards Izuku with water in hand. The boy was pushing a broken fridge through the sand. Touch. Cold. Here, drink this when you get thirsty. You're doing some real hero work here, making this place beautiful again. Naruto took the water off of his face, and tossed it up, forcing Izuku to catch it. The green-haired boy was visibly shocked, before he smiled widely, brighter than he should be. Really, like a hero. Thank you so much. Izuku bowed repeatedly, thankfully taking the water and setting it down gently in the sand, before he waved to Naruto as he got back to clearing the beach. Yep, the boy was hero-obsessed, so comparing him to a hero was a great motivator. I'm going to take a break from everything. Naruto fell face first into the towel he laid down. He would keep an eye on Izuku, but he would do it with his eyes closed. As long as he was listening to everything that was going on, he was sure everything would be okay. The sun just felt so good on his skin, and the warmth of the towel and sand was just divine right now. Shark, and it's got Kirishima. Seriously. Naruto looked up and saw a shark in the water, with Kirishima in its mouth. Okay, so Kirishima had a hardening quirk, since his entire body looked more rugged and solid than before as the shark started to try and rip him apart. Naruto did a push-up as he hopped up, walking across the beach and towards the water. See, told you there wasn't going to be a villain. Naruto stepped into the shallow waters. Mina's quirk was worthless in the water, which would just dilute her acid to harmless levels. Kirishima didn't seem like he had taken his quirk to a level where he could fight a shark while being caught in its mouth. It was taking everything he had, it would seem, just to not get eaten. Is that what you're worried about? Oh, don't be a baby, you're not dead yet. Naruto shouted to Kirishima as he jumped towards the shark, landing on top of its head with a grin. Also, don't stop using your quirk, because this is going to hurt the shark more than you. Naruto grabbed Kirishima by his outstretched hand, and ripped him out of the shark's mouth. A very decent amount of teeth coming with it as Kirishima was forced to join him on top of the shark. He held on to Naruto for dear life, the shark thrashing underneath them as Naruto held onto its fin. Okay, Kirishima felt mad respect for this man he was holding onto. Naruto just grinned. This is so cool. Kirishima shouted, the fear of the shark eating him alive gone, and replaced with excitement as he and Naruto held their own rodeo on a shark. The shark swimming around in the water to knock them off. The shark started to swim towards a bird that was sitting on the water, a seagull, before it jumped out of the water and swallowed the bird whole. Then a change happened. The shark grew wings. Humans weren't the only species capable of manifesting quirks, it was actually possible for regular animals to gain quirks as well. It would seem that this shark was in possession of its own quirk. Considering the absolutely massive seagull wings it sprouted from its body, it would seem that its power was the power to imitate anything that it swallowed. My boyfriend is riding a flying shark. Mina watched the shark take off into the air, now having a seagull's ability to breathe air and fly. The now winged shark, taking to the skies, carried off her friend and her boyfriend. You're recording this, right? Mina asked as she looked her female friends. There was no way her parents were going to believe her if she didn't have some kind of proof. Seeing her friend recording what was happening, she looked back to see the air rodeo that was going on in the sky above. The shark's quirk was pretty damn cool too. Okay, this isn't great, if it drops us from this height, and we're going higher. Naruto thought as Kirishima held onto his torso with all of his might. The shark just flew higher and higher up. Sorry shark, you were just doing shark things. Naruto apologized, since the shark was innocent in all of this. All it was doing was trying to eat, because it was a shark. Yet, here Naruto was, about to absolutely murder the shark for trying to sustain itself. Naruto transformed into his one-tailed state, Kirishima letting out a gasp of shock when it suddenly became a lot harder to hold on to Naruto, though since his eyes were closed he didn't see what was going on anymore. Naruto grabbed both sides of the shark's mouth, where teeth had been ripped out, before he yanked up as hard as he could. There was a very unpleasant snapping sound as the shark's mouth opened far too wide, even for a shark. The wings it grew went limp, and it started to fall back down towards the water. Naruto grabbed Kirishima and jumped off of the shark, opening his own mouth wide as he transformed from his single tail into his three-tailed form. Just large enough for him to fit Kirishima inside of his own mouth, and close it around him. He prepared for pain. Hitting the water hurt when he flopped on his back the second he landed, and opening his mouth to release Kirishima, he transformed back to a human form. Swimming up as fast as he could, Naruto took a deep breath of air at the same time that his fellow man's head popped out of the water. "Where's land?" Kirishima had the sense to ask when he noticed that they were very far away from the beach, far away enough that they didn't even see land as anything more than a small dot in the distance. Naruto swore. "Hold on to my back, I'll use my quirk and swim us back." Naruto groaned when he realized that he was going to have to grow pretty massive if he was going to swim them both back in a timely manner. What a way to spend a beach trip. Chapter 10 Boyship. Today was the day. Yes, I'm going to invite him to come and see my parents, and then, I'm going to surprise him with his birthday present. Mina had big plans for the day. Seeing as she and Naruto had been dating for a while now, she wanted him to meet her parents like any good daughter would. Her mother was super excited to meet her boyfriend, and her father couldn't be more supportive. She knew that she shouldn't have told them, but she had told her parents that Naruto was the fox man that would appear in the news every once in a while for saving people when there weren't heroes around. Normally, she was really into being rather spontaneous with her relationship with Naruto. The two just did whatever they felt like. If they wanted to see a movie, they did that. They never really planned out most of the stuff they did together, and it worked for them. This was special though. It was Naruto's 16th birthday, and the first birthday he would have friends for, considering he was homeschooled his entire life. She was sure his uncle was awesome at planning parties, but she was sure that Naruto would appreciate more company. She wasn't really smart, or good at planning things out, but she really wanted to make this work out. She knocked on his front door, and grinned widely to herself, almost unable to contain herself. She was going to give Naruto a big kiss when he opened the door. Kirishima opened the door. "Oh, hey Ashido." "Naruto, Ashido is here." Kirishima called out, having answered the door. Mina blinked in surprise when, for one, that Kirishima was hanging out with Naruto without her. She hadn't hung out with Kirishima since the day at the beach, and she hadn't seen Naruto hang out with Kirishima either. Kirishima was wearing a white training gi with a white belt around his waist, sweat dripping from his body. When she took her shoes off and came inside, she saw Naruto standing in a similar outfit to Kirishima, but with a black belt around his waist. "Oh, Mina. Did we have a date today? Come on Kirishima, don't stop now, get hard and come." Naruto raised his fists up and gestured for Kirishima to fight him. "Yes." Kirishima obeyed as his body became extremely rigid, and he ran towards Naruto, and punched him across the face as hard as he could. His fist cracked a little, and Naruto slugged him across the face in return. The two of them traded blows with little regard for their own personal safety. They weren't dodging each other in the slightest. Mina's jaw actually dropped when she went over to the couch and sat down, watching her boyfriend and friend smiling and punching each other. "Kirishima's looking more buff now, with our school uniform on, I guess I didn't notice." Mina knew her boyfriend was buff, but she didn't know that Kirishima had been putting on muscle. She had to admit, he was looking pretty good now that he wasn't as skinny as before. He had muscle before, but now it was so much more well pronounced. How long had they been training together? "So Mina, I don't think we had a date today, what brings you here?" Naruto was punched in the forehead, and he returned with a punch to Kirishima's ribs. Kirishima's body unhardened and he was sent flying, rolling across the ground, before he stopped when he landed upside down against the wall. "Ow, seriously, my body is as hard as steel now. This training is painful, but damn if it doesn't work. How are your fists?" Kirishima forced himself to stand up again. He looked towards Naruto, and grinned when he saw Naruto grinning. Naruto raised his fists. "Just fine. Your body is as strong as it will get from regular training, and you're a lot harder than my old punching bag for sure. Now you just need to find a way to stay hard longer." Naruto glanced at his fist, and saw that his knuckles were slightly purple. He grinned to himself, since he and Kirishima had been training for several hours now. His training was working. Now, he could afford to punch metal and hard bodies without holding back, and causing only minimal damage to his fists. His months of training his fists were paying off, and now he was training the rest of his body by having Kirishima punch him with his hardened fists. Just like how Naruto was increasing Kirishima's hardness by breaking his body over and over again. So manly. They started to fight again, with Kirishima going more offensive than before, a newfound energy after seeing Naruto's manly grin once more. So, how long have you two been hanging out like this? Mina didn't spend every waking hour with Naruto, she did have school again, and she had other friends she did spend time with. Naruto didn't have a monopoly on her time, and she didn't have one on his time. It was healthy for their relationship if they spent time with their other friends. Friends Naruto apparently now had. My boy here asked me to help him work out a few days after the beach fiasco. Naruto grinned as he knocked Kirishima out of his hardened state again with repeated punches to the solar plexus. Kirishima collapsed to his knees to try and regain his breath, raising a hand up in surrender for the moment, until he had the strength to continue their sparring. You good? Naruto asked Kirishima as the teen started to stand up again, and nodded. Mina looked between them with an awkward grin. That was quite a while ago, and she was only now hearing about it. How could I not? This dude saved my life, and rode on a flying shark, before he swam us back to shore. You're so damn manly. Anyway, Naruto and I have been training like this since then. Kirishima jumped back into the training and he was punched in the nose for it. That would explain why Naruto and Kirishima had more bruises on their bodies lately, if this was what they were doing for training. Okay, and why this? The stronger Kirishima's body gets, the harder he is able to make his body, and by breaking him over and over, he can train to hold his hardened body longer, and I'm increasing my pain tolerance, and training my body to stand up to heavy hits. Naruto took one to the jaw, before he throat-punched Kirishima. Hard body or not, that one hurt if the gasp of pain meant anything. Naruto winced as he punched Kirishima again, and knocked him clear over the couch Mina was on, and behind it. Kirishima popped up behind the couch. Ow. That hurt. I'm ready for. I guess this is it, looks like I'm at my limit now. Kirishima tried to harden again, only for his body to refuse to do it. He had reached the end of his stamina for the moment. He was going to need to take another break before he could do it again. I'm sweating up a storm, can I use your shower bro? Kirishima asked, even though he was already heading towards Naruto's room. He had a private shower. Yeah, you can wear some of my old clothes, I've kind of outgrown some of them. Want to go clothes shopping again Mina soon? Naruto asked her with a sorry smile. Mina tilted her head. Naruto hadn't grown, had he? Standing up, she walked towards him and compared herself to him. He was only a few inches taller than she was when they met each other months and months ago, so raising her hand above her head, she measured him. When did you get so tall? Mina had never noticed that Naruto was taller than when she met him. They hung out so much, she guessed she just never noticed the changes in his height before. It was surprising though when it was brought up that her boyfriend was still a growing guy. Most Japanese guys stopped growing earlier than their foreigner counterparts, but it would seem that wasn't the case for Naruto. Naruto walked over to a wall next to the kitchen, and he grabbed a knife, before he leaned up against the wall and curiously put the knife just above his head. Looks like I'm about 180 centimeters now, so 5 feet 11 inches, but closer to 6 feet. Naruto hadn't measured himself for a while now. Mina looked at him. Hey Naruto, my birthday is on the 16th, want to come to my house and play some games with me? Kirishima came out of Naruto's room, looking slightly moist, but clean again. He had taken a super quick shower, and was wearing Naruto's older clothes. Naruto paused. Today is my birthday. I'm 16 now, without my uncle here to remind me, I actually forgot. Naruto had Kirishima hanging off of him instantly. Dude, we totally need to order a pizza and watch bro out. Actually, that is why I'm here. Do you want to come to my house? Mina asked Naruto, and Kirishima raised his hands up in surrender. He knew when he was being a third wheel. I'll wash these and bring them back tomorrow after school, see you tomorrow Naruto. This third wheel knows when to take a hike. Kirishima left Naruto and Mina alone when he walked out the front door. Mina actually sighed in relief, before she smiled at Naruto. She was a little happy and jealous. You know, I would be willing to train dash. So, you were saying earlier. Naruto unintentionally interrupted her. She frowned for a moment, before putting a smile on her face. On second thought, her quirk was too dangerous, she didn't want to turn her acid against her boyfriend, even if it was only for training. Naruto and Kirishima both had transformation-type quirks, so it was more natural for them to train together, even if Naruto wasn't using his quirk. She grabbed his hand with her own. Let's go to my house, and celebrate your birthday with my family. I'm a little surprised you're 16. Usually people start UA at 15. Mina spoke, and apparently she hit a raw nerve. Naruto leaned forward, depressed. My uncle is my teacher, but he's not good at it, and he's always busy. I learned most of what I know by himself, to be honest, so I'm not the smartest around. Let me get changed and we can get out of here. Naruto told her with a self-hating laugh. She laughed at him, since he just admitted he was dumb, she was stupid too, so she could sympathize with him, but she stopped laughing when she saw that he sent her a hurt look for a second. She would apologize the second he was done changing. Then, they would go to her house for cake. Chapter 11 Things Unknown. Author's note, I've left something very important hidden in this chapter, let's see if anyone can figure it out. So Fluffy. It's been getting pretty cold outside lately. Naruto spoke as he played a game with Mina. She was sitting in his lap, with her body pressing closely against his furred body. At her request, he had transformed so that she could use his higher body temp and fluff as a way to warm up. She wasn't even throwing a fit over the fact that she was losing to him again, he had really gotten good at this game. She was barely even playing the game in all fairness, but she would be losing even if she were playing with all of her skill. She snuggled deeper into his fur, absolutely enjoying herself, bliss on her face. She didn't mind the cold so much, but she enjoyed the feeling of being consumed by his fluffy body when he transformed after being stricken by the cold. It's snowing pretty heavily outside, how does this not bother you? Mina looked up at him. He shrugged. My normal body heat is a few degrees over 100, even in my regular form. Fahrenheit or Celsius? Mina asked him, since he didn't say that. Fahrenheit. Naruto told her, since his usual body heat was around 101.7, seeing as his body was adjusted to having fox traits thanks to his quirk. The conversation about his hot body ended there, naturally, as they played games in silence. I'm starting to get bored with this. Naruto told her after he had beaten her again. Winning was only so much fun. I don't want to go outside though. Mina would have been happy to go outside normally, but it was winter now. There was a fresh layer of snow on the ground, and it was still snowing. Where is your uncle? Mina asked Naruto as she glanced up at him. He changed the channel from the game they were playing, to whatever was on the movie channel. Doing hero work, I guess. Is somebody knocking on the door? Naruto questioned when he heard a really weak knock at the door. He was about to stand up, before Mina turned around and hung onto him. When he stood up, she stayed connected to him by wrapping both arms and legs around him. Why? Naruto asked her simply. She gave him a muffled response. Warm. I'm going to answer the door, maybe it's my boy Kirishima. Naruto said with a wide smile. He hadn't seen his only male friend all week, and he was starting to hiss him. He left his room with Mina attached to him, crossing the living room, and opened the door without questioning who it was again. It wasn't Kirishima. Hey Naruto, Toshinori-san asked me to come by, and make sure you weren't up to any unauthorized hero work. Mind if I come in? It was Ryuko. You're the number 9 hero, Ryuko. Mina instantly let go of Naruto and gushed when she saw the real Ryuko in the flesh, up close and personal. The cold was forgotten when she ran outside and looked at the woman in her casual clothes. You're like my favorite hero. Naruto, why didn't you ever tell me you knew Ryuko? Mina turned on Naruto and started to playfully pound her fists against his chest. Naruto transformed back to normal. Ryuko just waved. It's nice to meet Naruto's girlfriend. Please, I'm not working or helping Naruto train, so you can call me Ryuko. Ryuko said as she let herself in with a shiver. She leaned forward and placed her head against Naruto's chest, a visibly shiver running down her body. This cold weather was a nightmare for her, and Naruto's hot body was heavenly right about now. Mina wasn't even jealous, she was still just in awe. I'll make some coffee, Naruto said as Mina went back into the house, and he closed the door. He turned the heater on a little higher than before, since Ryuko was going to be here. My uncle usually lets me and Mina stay here alone, what changed? Naruto asked as he glanced back at Ryuko, heading into the kitchen to start the coffee machine. She sat down on the couch, but didn't take off her jacket like most people would have. Naruto, she's Ryukyu, she's a pink dragon. I'm pink. Mina's voice was a whisper as she grabbed him by the shirt and shook him back and forth. Ryuko was the only hero whose skin was bright pink when she was in her dragon form. Mina had always admired how the woman had managed to make pink look so heroic and menacing at the same time. Ryuko just watched with a smile. So this was his girlfriend. Romance is in the air, and he felt that you being alone with your girlfriend during this time of the year wouldn't be great for your futures. Ryuko spoke gently as she always did. It was the romantic time of year that teenagers' blood was pumping more than ever, and many times, if given the chance, mistakes were made as a result. Naruto and Mina had promising futures, though she had never met Mina in person before now, and if they made a dumb teenage mistake their futures could get ruined by it. Futures. Oh. Ugh. Mina's face darkened with a fierce blush when she started to realize what was being worried about. Naruto deadpanned. Seriously? I'm not going to have sex with Mina, just because we're alone together. Naruto stated as he poured a cup of coffee for Ryuko. Mina looked at Naruto with a sharp gaze. And why not? Mina shot at him, finding a little insult in that. His statement heavily implied that he wasn't attracted to her sexually, and that actually hurt her feelings a little. She didn't want to push the relationship too quickly either, but Naruto implying that she wasn't attractive enough to want to have sex with wasn't something she could take lightly. Ryuko took the coffee from Naruto and sipped at it, letting its warmth invade her body from the inside out. She glanced at Mina. Because, I'm 16 and you're 15. And if you pass U.A.S test to get in, then we are going to be training to be pro heroes. You're capable of getting pregnant, and I'm capable of getting you pregnant. One accident is all it would take to ruin your future, and just because we're dating, doesn't mean I want to start a family right now. Naruto explained with a raised eyebrow. He sat down next to Ryuko, and she leaned into his side and appreciated his warmth as well. She loved how hot his body was during these cold winter days. Even when he was a kid, she would have him sit in her lap when she was his babysitter. Watching TV with Naruto in her lap was one of her fond memories of his childhood. He had grown so big now, he seemed to be a good half-foot taller than her, which was a major growth spurt since the last time she had seen him. Oh. Sorry, you're right. I didn't think about that. Mina sat down on Naruto's other side as he turned the TV on in the living room. She glanced at him. This brings back memories. Ryuko said as the channel was changed to a TV show that was inspired by something from a long time ago. Yep. I don't want to push our relationship, but I guess I've wanted Naruto to come onto me. It really hurt when I thought he didn't find me attractive. Naruto has been holding back for my sake, so he doesn't accidentally ruin my future. Mina felt guilty when she leaned against Naruto. Despite Ryuko sitting there, she wasn't paying much attention to the pro hero anymore. She was thinking about her own feelings, something that took a higher priority to being in the presence of a pro hero. So Naruto, have you thought about my offer any? Ryuko asked Naruto, and he nodded his head. Mina looked at him. Offer? She asked curiously. This was the first time that she was hearing about this at all. At UA you'll be allowed to intern with a pro hero, and I want Naruto to become my intern when he's allowed to. Ryuko had wanted Naruto's answer on her offer, an offer from years ago actually. She had offered this to Naruto when he was just a small child, and started to show promise. He and I both have transformation quirks that let us turn into mythical creatures. Our quirks share a good compatibility as well. Ryuko smiled at the thought of it. Mina looked surprised. Naruto had never mentioned it. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Okay, Mina could understand why Naruto didn't mention it if he didn't think on it. Take all the time you need. Have you thought about costume designs yet? Ryuko knew that Naruto would have a little more trouble than others finding a costume. He was like her, and grew several new appendages when he transformed. He was a humanoid fox after all, and his costume needed to adjust to him growing tails and becoming far larger and more muscular. Naruto smiled at that. Yeah. I know what I want there at least. Naruto spoke with a proud smile. He had his costume already planned out. Chapter 12 Perverse Love. I can see the family resemblance easily. Naruto was sitting across a nervous-looking woman, maybe 5 feet 3 inches in height, who looked quite a bit like Izuku Midoriya, which would make sense since this person was Inko Midoriya. It was only a week away before Izuku was going to inherit One for All, and while Izuku didn't know that Naruto was aware of his situation, or that Naruto was involved in anything at all, since he had yet to formally introduce himself, Naruto was going to settle some things first that needed to be stated. So, you mentioned needing to speak about my son. Yeah, you're no doubt noticed he's been working out a lot, and pushing himself to the brink of breaking, and even breaking itself. Since I can tell Izuku is going to keep this a secret from you, I'm going to tell you the truth ahead of time. You're his mother, so you have a right to know what is going on in his life. Naruto knew that his uncle was going to try and get Izuku to keep this a secret from his family. That was wrong, since this woman could become a target for somebody that was going to try and make an enemy of Izuku once he possessed a quirk. This woman deserved to know what situation her son was in, and how it was going to affect his and her life. She looked confused and worried. He's not in trouble, is he? Enko questioned softly, tears already in her eyes. Naruto thought on it. Not now. Anyway, your son has been hanging out with my uncle. He's been training Izuku, and helping get his body physically strong enough to handle something very important. Would you be happy if your son had a quirk? Naruto asked Inko, not knowing how he was going to break this news gently. This woman seemed like her emotions were always on a loose trigger. As important as it was that she really know, this could ruin Izuku's chance of inheriting One for All if she denied him that chance. She looked saddened. Of course, he's always wanted to become a hero. I would give him my quirk if I could. Enko smiled at the very thought of being able to pass her ability to her son. Naruto nodded. My uncle used to be quirkless like Izuku, and his master passed her quirk onto him. Now, it's his turn to pass down this special quirk, and last year, your son showed my uncle that he had what it took to be a real hero. He chose Izuku to be the one to get his quirk, to help your son become the hero he wants to be. Naruto came out and said it. Thump. Enko fainted. She actually fainted, when she learned that her son was going to be getting a quirk. Naruto palmed his face a little as the small, but round, woman had her face planted firmly into the table. He nodded his head though in understanding, if his uncle weren't All Might and he hadn't grown up knowing this stuff, then he would have a hard time believing it as well. He had known about One for All and All for One for about as long as he had been alive, and the entire situation actually. His uncle had never been able to keep it a secret from him, not when he tried to get Naruto to inherit the quirk. Good coffee the woman made though. I'm awake, and I'm not sure I heard that right. Izuku is going to be getting his own quirk, for real. The worried mother had more in her eyes than distrust. She had hope, despair, worry, and relief all in her eyes. This sounded too good to be true. It's called One for All. It's the quirk that allows a person to store power, and pass the quirk down to somebody else to store power. Izuku will be the 9th successor for One for All, and if he is willing to endure the hardships that come with it, then he'll become a really great hero. Naruto had a grin on his face. Yeah, his fellow teen was going to be in for a lot of pain, a ton of it. A lot of it would be inflicted by Naruto himself as well, since he was going to be teaching Izuku how to wield a quirk once he got it. Who better to teach how to use a quirk, than a person who had a quirk? His uncle couldn't afford to do this part of the teaching, so it was up to him to do it, the only person who was aware of the situation, and in a position to help. Enko looked for any sign Naruto was lying. She couldn't find it. If he's your uncle, why didn't he choose you? I can't imagine a family member picking a stranger above family. Her concerns were well-founded, since it was in human nature to trust only those that you were close to. Naruto nodded at the question. He's respecting my wishes. I don't want the power. I'm like Izuku, I'm going to become a hero, but I'm going to do it with my own quirk. The quirk I inherited from my mother. He has tried countless times to convince me, but you're right to be suspicious. You're a really good mom, do me a favor dash. Is he going to be in danger? Of course, but he chose the path of a hero. He willingly chose to put his life on the line for others, so Dash Naruto pushed his fingers against his cheeks, and stretched his grin into a wide toothy smile. Do this, and support him. Every boy needs his mother's support, because your smile is going to be the smile that protects his heart, and keeps him strong. Naruto gave her his widest smile. She was touched. She actually put her hands above her heart, taken back by the sheer feelings he was able to convey with his smile. She nodded her head slowly, before it gained speed, and she was nodding viciously. I'll support him, this is his dream. I should have supported him from the beginning anyway. Well, with that, I'm done here. I thought it fair you should know, and now you do, I'm out. Naruto stood up from the chair and started to walk towards the front door. Now that Inko knew what she needed to know, him being at her house didn't really serve any purpose. Might as well just go home now, and pick up something to eat along the way. Later. Seriously, I was just trying to get something to eat, why is my luck like this? Naruto backflipped in his fox form as he avoided a villain shooting porcupine-like spikes at him from out of his body. Once more, Naruto had come across one of those instant villains that the news had reported. The guy's tongue was completely black like the other ones in the news too. It was hard to knock the guy out though when his entire body was covered completely in spikes. Not to mention this time, the fight wasn't even in public, this time it was happening in the back of an alleyway that Naruto had been using as a shortcut. I'll cut you, stab you, puncture you. Yeah, I've noticed, and why are you freaking out, you were trying to mug me. Naruto shouted as he looked at the wounds on his body. This time he was using his quirk as a legitimate form of self-defense, since he had been attacked by a villain. The guy had started off trying to mug him by stabbing him several times from behind, which didn't really work too well since Naruto avoided getting fatally stabbed. Well, figures, I was about due for illegal hero work. Naruto turned the corner and went further into the alleyway. There was a girl being pushed up against the wall by an older man in this alley. What was up with this alley and crime? Naruto jumped into the air, grabbed the man by the back of the shirt, and slammed him into the wall opposite of the girl. He was knocked out cold right away, and Naruto hooked his arm around the girl's waist and jumped again when the villain chasing him turned the corner. I've got you. Damn me and my inability to not save people. Naruto didn't have a lot of room to dodge while holding the girl when more spikes came at him. Using his body as a shield, he protected the girl from most of them, and dodged whatever wasn't going to hit her. It was thanks to the pretty thick muscles of his larger form that they didn't go super deep into his body, but several spikes went through one of his arms. The girl smiled widely at Naruto. Wow mister, you're bleeding a lot, you're a really nice guy. This girl has no sense of urgency, what a weird one. Naruto saw a knife that was on the ground, and though he didn't like weapons, he grabbed it and ran towards the villain. Adjusting the girl so that she was on his back, he held the knife by the blade itself, and took several spikes to the legs as he slammed the handle of the knife into the top of the villain's head. Using the blunt force of the blow, and the extended range the weapon gave him, he was able to get through the spikes and deliver a powerful blow to Mugger. Down like a light he went. He needed to find some sort of way to combat villains with dangerous body armor like that. He had hardened his fists to be able to punch hard-bodied villains, but that wouldn't really work against those that had spikes or some kind of dangerous armor. Naruto transformed back into his normal state and looked at both his ruined clothes, and the cuts that he was covered in. Nothing seemed too deep or life-threatening, since wounds in his larger form shrank a little when his body decreased in size. The wounds didn't heal per se, but seeing as his body lost size, the wounds would naturally lose size. It wouldn't make sense if Naruto got a 5-foot-tall bruise in his giant form, and he had a 5-foot-tall bruise in his smaller form as well. Wow, you knocked them both out cold. Are you okay? Looks like you went through something pretty nasty. He didn't hurt you, did he? Naruto looked at the girl. Something was off about her, and he could tell the second he took in her looks. She was a petite girl with her extra messy hair and spiked buns at the side of her head. Her cheeks were pink and heated, and her fanged mouth was grinning at him as she poked the guy pushing her against the wall with her foot. Her yellow eyes, slit pupils, had dark circles underneath them. Her clothes were way too large for her body, and she wore a girl's school uniform. She looked at the man. Nope. I consider today a win. I got to meet Mr. Foxy from the news. You know, you're pretty good looking. She playfully hopped towards him with her arms behind her back. She looked at him up and down, while Naruto raised his jacket sleeves and wiped some of the blood away from his arm. This was going to be a nightmare to get out. I'm out of here. I'm going to call the cops and report these two people. They'll give you a ride home for sure. Naruto turned to leave and pulled his phone out. My name's Himiko Toga. What's your name, Mr. Foxy? Naruto. Naruto didn't like the way this girl asked that, but he didn't really have a reason not to give his name to the girl. He continued to walk away though, not seeing as the girl sent him the brightest smile she could manage. When he was gone, the girl looked at the man that was assaulting her earlier. She smiled sadly and pat his head. Sorry, I'm in love with a new guy now, and here I was looking forward to becoming you. Don't worry though, I still think you look handsome though. Himiko picked her knife up off the ground. The guy had tried to stop her from stabbing him earlier, and before she could kill him, Naruto had come in and saved her. He looks even better covered in blood than you do. Himiko stabbed him in the side of the neck with a giant grin. She got up and walked over to the other guy, his spikes receding into his body, and she stabbed him a few times in the back. This guy hurt her new love, he had to die for that. Guh. Shhhhhhhh, it only hurts for a second when I stick it in. Naruto, he was wearing black pants, and an orange hoodie. Skirts are cuter than pants though. Himiko went through her normally internal dialogue outside of her head. She continued to stab the man, looking at the blood with a wide smile as it flowed. Well, if she wanted to dress like her love, then she needed to find an orange jacket like his. She couldn't wait until she met him again. Chapter 13 Scary Teacher. A perfectly clean beach. So Izuku cleaned up this well, not a scrap of trash left on the beach. Naruto thought as he walked barefoot through the sand. It was only 2 weeks before the UA entrance exams officially happened, and seeing as both his girlfriend and Kirishima were putting their all into studying to pass the written portion of the exams, he didn't really have anyone to hang out with. Naturally, that left him with a little too much free time, and normally he would train, but that actually led him to the curious thought of checking up on his uncle and Izuku. After all, One for All had been passed down already, and he was curious to see how Izuku was handling the power, and if his uncle had helped him make any progress with his new quirk. Clench your asshole and scream dash. Smash. Naruto felt the force of the punch as it split almost half a mile of the ocean, before the force of the punch died off. He stood firm though and continued to walk towards the screaming idiot and his student. Seeing his uncle standing over Izuku, who was curled up into a ball cradling his arm in pain, Naruto gained an amused grin on his face when he noticed the elderly recovery girl was sitting nearby with a bowl of gummies, ready to give Izuku her healing kiss when he needed it. Naruto walked up to her, so that he was standing behind her, and put his hands in his pockets. The boy's body won't last at this rate. She knew the second Naruto got behind her, and he hummed as he watched Izuku stand up, his right arm visibly injured by his own newfound strength. It was red and purple, with it being visibly broken. You should have been the one to inherit One for All. You have trained since you were a wee little lad to handle this power. Your body is capable of handling 100%, young Izuku's body isn't ready for this. Recovery girl pointed out under her breath. She was playing the guilt card. Everyone who knew about One for All was of the same thought as her. Naruto had been trained from the age of 5, his body being pushed to the absolute brink and beyond, so that he could inherit this power. He had been broken and healed so many times that recovery girl might as well be his grandmother, he had seen her so much. His body was also made to grow larger and become more powerful as well, so One for All would have been an amazing thing to combine with his already incredible physical strength. Sadly, nobody had planned on him not wanting to inherit One for All, and simply wanting to save people using his own natural quirk. I already have a quirk of my own, and I'll become a hero with it. If I were to accept One for All, there would be one less hero in the world, because now I will become a hero, and Izuku will become a hero, that is 2 heroes. Naruto knew that it was a lame excuse, but he just didn't want the power. His father had rejected One for All and became the number 2 hero using nothing but his teleport quirk, a quirk that wasn't even designed for battle. He had a quirk that was actually good for a fight, so why would he accept a quirk that wasn't his own? It's too late now, Izuku has One for All. It doesn't matter if anyone agrees or not, the only people whose opinions matter are Uncle and Izuku. Yours doesn't matter, and mine doesn't matter. Naruto folded his arms behind his head and started to walk towards the chaos that was unfolding. His uncle was still a shitty teacher, it would seem. Well, you have the smash right at least. Toshinori, in his true form, pointed out as he rubbed his chin in thought. My arm dash. Suck it up, baby, it's your fault for using One for All wrong. Naruto interrupted Izuku as the boy started to stand back up, tears of sheer pain in his eyes. If he remembered Naruto from the months ago that they met, it seemed that he was in too much pain to recall him right away. It took him a few moments to register what Naruto had said, while Toshinori seemed surprised that Naruto had showed up. Naruto had yet to take a proactive role in Izuku's training, other than silently watching or modifying the 10-month plan. One for All, I don't know what you mean, this is just a stray dash. It's okay, young man, Naruto here is one of the people aware of One for All, and who I am. I've asked him several times the past few weeks to come and help out, but he's been rather stubborn. Toshinori looked at Naruto with a growing smile on his face. He extended a fist to Naruto, and Naruto bumped his uncle's fist. Izuku looked at Naruto, for all intents and purposes a boy his own age, and nodded in acceptance. It didn't make sense for a random boy to know this mighty secret, but if All Might wasn't going to explain, he wouldn't push. You're not telling him then, fine. Naruto could see what Toshinori was doing. Izuku was just given a great power, it wouldn't do for the boy to know that Naruto had been the original candidate to gain One for All instead of him. It wouldn't do well for his confidence in himself, and would hinder his progress if he learned that he wasn't intended to get the power he now had. Izuku bowed while cradling his arm. It's nice to meet you, I would love any help you can offer, anything to keep me from ending up like this every time I use my quirk. Naruto punched Izuku in the face, sending him flying across the sand. He didn't even hit the ground before Naruto ran after him and kneed him in the gut, knocking him into the air a little, before he slammed both of his fists against the boy's back and smashed him into the sand. He said nothing as he stepped a few steps back and raised a hand up, gesturing for Izuku to come at him. Ugh. Izuku's unbroken arm was on his bruised face as he struggled to regain his breath. He started to stand up, not only confused by the random attack, but trying his best to think about why Naruto had just attacked him. What? Why? Naruto kicked him in the chest, knocking him down into the sand again. Toshinori winced. That had to hurt. Ah, trial by fire it is. Recovery Girl knew her work was cut out for her today, since it didn't seem like Naruto was playing around. Naruto kicked the almost literal shit out of Izuku when he kicked him in the gut, knocking him onto his back. The difference in their strength and skill was clear when Naruto grabbed Izuku by the shirt, pulled him to his feet, and then punched him in the nose. Naruto stopped beating Izuku moments later. Naruto, what you're doing? Shut up, All Might, come on Izuku, tell me where it hurts. Does your arm hurt from using your quirk wrong, or does your entire body hurt after I beat the shit out of you? Naruto asked Izuku as he looked down at the boy. He groaned in pain. My entire body hurts, can't breathe right. Well, stand up, and fight me. You have a left arm, right, use One for All and beat me. Naruto told Izuku as he placed his right hand in his pocket. He used his left hand to gesture for him to bring it on. He waited for almost a minute before Izuku could stand up, and he looked at All Might for guidance on what to do. His power could easily kill a person, he didn't want to fight another human being. Do it. Okay, Here I come then. Izuku shouted as he ran across the sand at Naruto. He wasn't a fast runner, he was a little on the slow side actually. Not to mention he didn't really have a fighting style. His movements were extremely easy for Naruto to read when he pulled back his left arm. Samaasi. Naruto saw the fist coming for his face, before he punched Izuku's forearm and redirected the punch into the ocean once more. Instantly, Izuku's left arm ended up just like his right arm. Now, All Might is the type to let you try and figure this out, and I bet you've already noticed you can't use one for all at 100% without making yourself useless. What use is a hero who uses his power once, and needs to be saved? Naruto asked as he grabbed Izuku's shirt, and pulled him in close and gave him a nasty headbutt. The boy was knocked onto his back, in a heavy daze from the blow. Not to mention, just because you have amazing strength, doesn't mean a strong villain can't beat your strength. Naruto wanted to see if Izuku was capable of seeing what he was supposed to do. All Might winced when Naruto pulled Izuku to his feet. Naruto's training was hell on Naruto, and whoever was unlucky enough to train with Naruto. How? Stop treating one for all as a super move. You've had the quirk for 2 weeks now, you should be able to control how much strength you use by this point. Honestly, looking at you, you might be able to handle 7% of one for all, maybe 8%. Naruto forced Izuku to stand back up. Both of his arms were completely useless, but Naruto made the motion to come on again. Izuku looked at his own arms, before he looked at Recovery Girl and Toshinori. She sighed. I hope you know what you're doing. Toshinori looked at Naruto with some fear. This wasn't great. Control your strength, or you'll lose your arms. Both your arms are broken, if you use 100% again, you may never be able to use them again. Without your arms, you'll never be a hero, and you'll have to pass on one for all to somebody who can actually use it. Naruto taunted Izuku. Izuku stopped moving. He's standing with his right foot forward, so he's right-handed, but his left hand is out. He's going to divert any punch I make, and I'm not fast enough to attack him faster than his reflexes will anticipate me. If I use one for all in my legs, then I'll be able to cross the distance between us in less than a second, but my legs will break and I won't be able to move. He was able to deflect my 100% punch earlier, so he knows martial arts and doesn't seem to show a fear of getting hit either. Even if he doesn't divert my punch, he hasn't shown his quirk, so I don't know what type of counter he has for me. He could have a quirk that lets him strengthen his body, or maybe something to let attacks pass through him. Either way, unless I increase my speed, I have no chance of hitting him, but my punch will do nothing if I don't increase the strength of my punch. Izuku looked at Naruto and started to do every calculation in his head that he could to try and plot out a way to attack. He needed to increase both speed and power at the same time, but he also needed to use less than 100% of his power, or he would end up rather useless, and unable to become a hero. Unable to become a hero? Izuku froze. He's overthinking. Recovery Girl scowled at Naruto. What was he playing at? The boy's intelligence is his own downfall. He's faced with an opponent who he can't beat without risking everything, that he knows nothing about, and who is willing to destroy his body. It's like the young man is facing a real villain. Toshinori could appreciate what Naruto was trying. He was setting up a situation where Izuku had no choice but to come to a single answer. If Izuku didn't figure out the correct answer, his future as a hero was over. No, if he didn't figure out the answer, then he didn't have a future as a hero anyway. All Might believes in me, but how can I do this? I would need to use one for all on my arms and legs at the same time, but, wait. Izuku looked over at Toshinori in his true form. When he used one for all, his entire body became huge and gained a ton of muscle. He was using the quirk over his entire body to constantly increase all of his strength, treating the quirk as part of his own body. For 2 weeks, he had been treating the quirk as an all-or-nothing power to be used with only a single limb. Looking back at Naruto, he saw Naruto blink, before grinning at him. He's got it, damn, he's a fast learner when he's pushed into a corner. Uncle, you've picked a real winner. Naruto grinned over at his uncle as Izuku's body gained red veins for a brief moment all over it, and sparks flew from his body. He moved several times faster than before. Izuku used as much strength as he could, and it hurt, but he used only as much strength as he could that wouldn't end up with his body being destroyed. He could feel the pain spread across everywhere, but it didn't hurt like it was hurting before. He crossed the distance between them in less than a second, and he threw his punch the second he was in striking distance. Naruto ducked underneath the punch, and spun on his heel as Izuku unconsciously let go of his hold on the power now that his punch missed, and Naruto grabbed the back of his shirt and threw him onto his back. Toshinori entered his muscle form. "Well done, my boy Midoriya. You've just taken a massive step in the right direction." Toshinori hopped over to them and leaned over Izuku's prone form. It was at this point that Recovery Girl stood up and started to walk towards them so that she could heal Izuku. Naruto stopped smiling. He actually almost hit me. I hadn't expected him to be able to move that fast his first time. If my body hadn't moved on its own, he would have tagged me. Naruto slapped his cheeks as Recovery Girl gave Izuku a big kiss on the arm. His body started to glow as all of his injuries started to heal themselves. Izuku's stamina training was for this purpose, so he could be healed back to full health without worrying about dying from it. This was too harsh, he could have ended up paralyzed. Recovery Girl turned on Naruto. She let it go because she thought Naruto had a plan. Naruto gave a cocky smirk. "Well, good thing Izuku is good under pressure." "Well, Izuku, think you understand?" Naruto asked Izuku, who sat up and nodded his head. "I need to spread one for all evenly over my entire body. I wasn't treating one for all like my quirk. I was treating it like All Might's quirk and using it for finishing moves." "How did you know I would figure that out?" Izuku saw Naruto stick his pinky in his ear. "Didn't know you would. If you had broken your body beyond repair, I would have remanded that All Might make you transfer your quirk to somebody better. Anyway, it isn't All Might's quirk anymore, now it's a natural part of your body. Now that you've used it in a stressful situation, learn to control the power more naturally, and hold the power in place. Now, All Might." Naruto gave his uncle his most fierce glare. Toshinori winced under the glare, knowing that it wasn't good for him. "I know. I'll try and teach him better, and stop relying on you for everything." He spoke as he raised his hands in surrender. Naruto pointed at him angrily. "You better. It's fine to let him figure things out, but a teacher doesn't let their students figure out everything on their own. You have to take some damn responsibility and tell him what he is doing wrong, and show him the way to correct himself. Then, maybe I wouldn't have to use these extreme methods to make the lesson stick. Also, what do you want for dinner?" Naruto decided that he would ask that while he was lecturing his uncle. It was a serious concern, seeing as he was going to go shopping for ingredients. Recovery Girl and Izuku sweat dropped when they saw All Might himself get treated like a kid by a teenager, and forced to sit on his knees on the beach. It was actually a hilarious sight to see the number one hero get treated this way. Who the hell is this guy to treat All Might this way? Izuku was confused, and scared, when he saw his hero get yelled at like this. "Ramen. You're damn right we're having ramen tonight. See ya later, Izuku, Recovery Girl. I'll give you a helping hand whenever you feel like you need it. You can get my number from this one here." Naruto looked towards Izuku with a grin. Izuku gulped. Should he be scared? Chapter 14 Preparing for UA. When are you going to tell him, Naruto? Naruto grimaced when he was lectured, a lecture that came every time he visited Sorahiko, Gran Torino. The old man, standing well over a foot shorter than Naruto, still made the teenager wince when he beat him over the head with a walking stick. Naruto had visited to pay him a visit, partially because nobody visited Sorahiko in his old age, and partially because Naruto got his hero costume and wanted Sorahiko's opinion on how it fit him. Sorahiko was like a grandfather to him, and getting his hero costume several days before he went to UA was a big thing for him. Naruto grimaced and willingly took the hit. When he sees me in this costume. Naruto gestured to the costume he was wearing. Naruto was wearing a black one-piece bodysuit, a bodysuit that was skin-tight without any sleeves to it, letting his arms be completely free. His hands and forearms were covered by yellow gloves that fit smoothly on his hands. He had a red cap wrapped around his waist, with it being held in place with a sun-shaped buckle, and he had white sandals that were open-toed at the front. Finally, he had a white cap draped over his shoulders, A cape that had the kanji for protect the heart going down the back of it. The cape had a clip on the front of it so that it could be easily removed, and on the lower back of the black bodysuit was a portion that would open up to allow his tails to escape the suit, easily hidden by the hip cape. Since Naruto's quirk made him grow larger and change shape, his hero costume needed to be started ahead of time, and made of certain materials that could grow and change shape to fit his body better. His boots changed structure to fit his feet when they took on their fox-human hybrid form, and the gloves had nearly invisible slits to them that would allow his claws to come out. Sadly, whenever he transformed to his two-tailed form or higher, he would need to remove the cape, which was possible with the easy removal clip. When I told you who your grandmother was, I believed you would tell your uncle, since he's now ready to learn the truth as well. He's not ready. After his last fight with All for One, his heart and body both were punished. If he learned that who my grandmother was, then that would destroy him. I can't do that to him. Naruto smiled sadly, but it was still a smile. It hurt him to not be able to talk with Toshinori about this, and he had wanted to talk about it for so long. He reluctantly kept the information secret for years and years, and it was perhaps the biggest reason why he never wanted to accept the one-for-all quirk. Toshinori smiled to hide his own pain, his fears, and everything that he didn't want the world to see. Few knew this about the man, the side he didn't show others. Fine, though, the suit looks good on you. It's styled just like my dear friend's suit, but adjusted to fit your gender and quirk. You inherited her smile, and will to protect others, though sadly, you also inherited her complete lack of talent. Sarahiko spoke as he appreciated Naruto's appearance in his hero costume. Since the material was made to grow, it was naturally also skin-tight and form-fitting, with the gloves and boots being tighter on Naruto and his friends' loose boots and gloves. Not to mention he changed the cape buckle and hip cape buckles to fit his image more. Naruto took the cape off his shoulders and folded it up, putting it away as it put his orange hoodie back on, zipping it up over his costume. Naruto did the same with the hip cape and just slipped pants on over the costume. Finally, Naruto took the gloves off and put them into the suitcase with the rest of the costume pieces removed. Naruto scowled. Talent this, talent that. The way I see it, with hard work and determination, I don't need talent. My uncle is talented, and look at him, he can't teach to save his life. Having no talent just means that when I become a great hero, then people will have somebody to look up to, and aspire to be like, though I really hate that heroes are. Naruto slapped his cheeks to stop that line of thought. The days were long gone that heroes were just normal people with powers that wanted to do good. Now, heroes were government workers who did hero work for money. Many did it for other reasons, like wanting to help, but being paid to be a hero. Naruto didn't like the fact that he had to become a hero through the government, become a villain in the eyes of society to do hero work. He just wanted to help people, that was all. He wanted people to see him and think I'm safe now when they were in danger, not become some public idol that could have his image easily exploited for money or fame. Though the title of hero wasn't what it used to be, and Naruto didn't respect the title itself, he would reluctantly become a government-approved hero on his path to saving people. He wanted to be a real hero, not what people considered a hero nowadays. So, gotten laid yet with that girlfriend or yours? PPFFFFFFT. Naruto violently spat out all of the air he was breathing when that statement interrupted his line of thought. What the hell, Gramps? The actual hell are you asking me? Of course I haven't. Naruto denied harshly, with the brightest of red cheeks. Sarahiko sent him a disappointed look. Seeing the pictures Toshinori has been sending me of you two, she's cute, do you not have any sex drive? We've got a declining birth rate and increasing death rate, not having a sex drive is Sarahiko was stopped when Naruto hit him on the head. Of course I want to have sex with her, but I shouldn't. I don't want to risk her getting pregnant and ruining her future. She wants to be a hero, and in a few months we will have been dating for a year, we haven't been in a relationship long enough. Naruto reasoned with a burning red face. Normally he wouldn't be embarrassed by this, but the subject had been brought up so randomly, he wasn't able to put up his usual mental defenses against weird questions. And, other reasons. Condoms exist, you know. Acid, her quirk is acid, and she doesn't have total control of her quirk. If we did something, I don't think she would be able to control herself. Naruto whispered under his breath, not liking the fact he was being pressured into admitting this. Sarahiko seemed to understand, and winced when he thought on it. Quirks and sex. Since quirks came naturally to most people, it was often accidental when somebody used a quirk during intimate moments without meaning to. It isn't uncommon for somebody to lose control of their quirk and hurt their partner a little, or a lot depending on the quirk. The introduction of quirks had introduced entirely new problems into private society, the part of society that wasn't mentioned in public much. Ow. Ow. You are making the right choice. Sarahiko decided not to question Naruto on this anymore. Acid and penis were not a pleasant combination for anyone involved. Naruto got a text. I was accepted. My boy Kirishima. All right. Naruto grinned at the thought he would be attending school with his best friend. He even gave a small fist bump to celebrate Kirishima passing the exams for UA. Naruto was about to text back, before he was sent another text, this one being in picture form. It was Mina sending him a selfie of her wearing the UA school uniform, giving him a thumbs up. Going to UA with his best friend and girlfriend was going to be awesome. Chapter 15. AB. All Might bowing his head. It actually wasn't as unusual a sight as one would think if you knew the man personally, seeing as the humble man actually did have a willingness to submit requests to others formally and informally just as frequently as the other. He was a man that was quick to bow his mighty head to others, including the large mouse man in front of him, the principal of UA, the mouse with a quirk Nizu. Nizu was just taking a long drag of his cigarette though, breathing the smoke out of the window, before he looked at All Might with a wide smile. You know, a teacher requesting to have several students in his class is quite the request. Nizu spoke as he looked at the written request in front of him. All Might turned back into his regular form. Izuku Midoriya has succeeded me in taking one for all, so it makes sense for me to be the teacher for Class 1A, and dash. I have no problem placing Izuku in Class 1A, the class fits him. You see, I already had the 20 students for that classroom planned out, and adding your nephew to that class's roster would mean I would have to remove a student from that class, and place them in 1B to trade places with him. Nizu spoke wistfully. In truth, he could understand Toshinori's reasons for this request. Nizu knew that Toshinori wasn't a great teacher, the prodigy had everything come naturally to him, so he didn't really ever have the struggles in controlling his quirk that were needed to allow him to become a teacher. His fighting style, moves, and control of his own power were all instinctual in that he didn't need to learn them, just gain experience with them. Seeing Izuku learning how to use One for All during the entrance exam allowed Nizu to figure out that somebody else had designed the training for that boy, somebody that knew what it took to help others reach their potential. The only person who fit that description that knew of One for All was young Naruto. Cheese. Toshinori showed that in a bag he brought with him, he had an entire wheel of cheddar. It's perfectly aged. Toshinori was sure that he was being offensive, but that didn't matter right now. Nizu looked at the cheese with a thoughtful expression, before he nodded his head after smelling the strong aroma. Cheese aside, your request isn't unreasonable. You yourself recommended him for the hero course, along with Ryuko, Sir Nightai, Best Genist, and Mirako all recommended him. Endeavor recommended his son, and several rookie and pro heroes recommended Momoyae Orozu. These three have the potential to become the next big three of UA. Nizu spoke as he got up and walked over to Toshinori, grabbing the cheddar offered to him, and putting it on the couch for later consumption. He sat down next to it and put his cigarette out in the ashtray. Half cold half hot, a quirk that allowed for the abilities to create and control both ice and fire using the right and left halves of one's body. The quirk alone in its diverse abilities in both the offense and defense would allow for instant fame and easy recognition, as well as boasting incredibly practical uses for its power. Creation, the quirk that could be literally used to create any non-living material from the body's fat cells, with only the user's imagination being the true limit of the quirk. It had offensive, defensive, support, rescue, and even medical uses for it that would allow the one with the quirk the potential to easily become a drastically popular and skilled hero, able to help all people in all situations. Monster Fox, the quirk that allowed the user to become a giant nine-tailed fox, with the more tails added increasing the size and power of the transformation. Once the user gained control over the Quirk's bloodlust completely, it was even rumored that the Quirk's latent abilities would be activated, allowing the user to freely control the hidden power within the Quirk. The Quirk's raw potential for battle was considerable, with its multiple sizes being useful for anything from rescue operations to full-on battle, the massive size being both an offense and great defense. These three students were each recommended by pro heroes for their skills and quirks. The next big three. Toshinori was a little surprised. He hadn't thought about that. Yes, the potential these three have is certainly higher than those around them. I was planning on placing them together in a class, to see how they would grow. For strength to grow, it needs to be tested and sharpened by the strength of others, and while they have quirks that are stronger than most pro-hero quirks, it seems they all have holding them back. Nizu had seen the only tests that those three needed to take. The results showed that each of them were being held back by something. It actually made his smile fade when he thought on that. Half cold half hot, refusing to use his flames in battle because of a troubled past. Creation, a strong will and keen mind, didn't understand the hardships of being pushed to the edge. It was unknown if she would hold up when pushed through stress. Monster Fox, a powerful quirk for sure, but the user seemed to fear pushing his quirk to the limits, so instead trained his body beyond what was safe out of fear of his own power. So, he'll be in Class 1A? Toshinori asked with a growing smile on his face. He needs to be. If he runs wild, he needs friends who can help him regain control. The fellow students of Class 1A and their quirks are most well suited for helping him. Nizu wasn't foolish either. Naruto was just as much of a threat with his quirk as his mother had been, though he had the potential to be a greater hero than his father had been. I remember what happened on the day of his birth. The day we lost Thunder God, and his son was left an orphan. Nizu looked at Toshinori, the hero visibly recoiling at the reminder. The day Minato died had been a sad one for him. They had been great friends, students who shared the same mentor for a while, and they had been brothers in all but blood. Minato had never told him who his parents were, not that it mattered to him, but the two of them might as well had been brothers. It was why it was only naturally that he, Toshinori, took in Minato's only surviving child of that day as his own. Also, I'm afraid if he doesn't help me, I won't be a very good teacher. Toshinori admitted with a self-loathing chuckle. He was so bad at teaching, he relied on his 16-year-old nephew to help him, when the child had his own problems to deal with. Though, I'm surprised you aren't seeing him off to school for his first day. Not quite the most dependable of parents, I must say. Nizu spoke jokingly, with Toshinori giving him a short look. Minato is his father, I'm not, and I can't ever replace Minato. It would be an insult to my friend's memory if I took the position of father. I'm Naruto's uncle, and that is what I'll always be for him. Toshinori spoke with cold seriousness there. That was the one thing he had ingrained into Naruto as a child, that he was not his father. It would feel, to him, like an insult to Minato if he stole his child's love for his father from him. Maybe if Minato had the one for all quirk instead of me, he would still be alive today. Toshinori thought for a brief moment, before he slapped his cheeks and prevented that line of thought from going any further. He shouldn't think on that anymore. Nizu glanced to his side and decided that it would be best if he not show Toshinori what he had planned on showing him. It could wait. With Naruto. Naruto. Kirishima. Killing me. Mina, trapped between them as they bro-hugged after not being able to see each other for a while, managed to choke out as she found herself the unwilling participant of their moment. That said, she smiled as she looked at their faces, before she squeezed her arms out from between her boyfriend and friend, and joined in on the hug as well. None of them had really seen each other in a while now, so she might as well enjoy their reunion on the first day they would all be attending the most popular school in the country. She was completely sure they were doing it on purpose though when they looked down at her. She blinked. Kirishima, dude, what happened to your hair? Naruto asked as he looked at his friend with some surprise, noticing for the first time that something was seriously different about Kirishima. His straight black hair was now bright red, and he had it spiked like horns. I figured this was a chance to make a new me, so red-haired me is the new me. Thought it looked cool. Kirishima looked away from Naruto and Mina, not wanting to see if they were sending disapproving looks. His parents had sent him similar looks when he came out of his room with a different hair color. They ended up being supportive of his choice, but the looks of shock on their faces were a little hurtful. He glanced at them. No real reaction. I guess it's cool, yeah, it looks pretty nice I guess. Naruto was corrected by Mina as she nudged him in the side. Also, I don't care what color your hair is, to be honest. Kirishima was Kirishima, red or black hair. Such a small change didn't really mean anything in the long run. Kirishima grinned. So, what class are you two going to be in? I'm in Class A. Mina grinned as they walked across the school grounds. A2. Kirishima smiled and looked at Naruto. He nodded. Hopefully, we're not in the same class as that bastard's son, he's attending UA this year on recommendation like me. Naruto really hoped that he wasn't put in the same class as Endeavor's son. He wasn't sure if he would be able to hold back his dislike, and he might not be able to stop himself from picking a fight if the guy inherited Endeavor's way of ignoring people he didn't consider worth his time. He better not have jinxed himself. Chapter 16 Class Intros. Class A. Traditionally, it was considered the class that spawned the majority of the great heroes that came from UA. All Might, Best Jeanist, and even Endeavor were just a few examples of the greatness that was expected of the heroes that graduated at the top of their classes in Class A. The expectations for many people when seeing a Class A hero alone were usually enough to make some weaker-willed students drop out of the course. Not to mention Class A was the class that had the harshest of teachers for years and years. Man, fighting those robots was super tough, didn't think I would manage to do as well as I did with my quirk. Don't know about that man, it was kind of easy. I'm going to play the guessing game with this one. Naruto looked around the classroom at his fellow classmates. Most of them were already seated in their chairs, some of them hadn't arrived yet actually. He did a mental head count, and noticed there were 3 less people than there were desks. Meaning that some people hadn't arrived at the school just yet. Knowing my uncle, he made sure Izuku and me were in a class together, bet he wants me to help Izuku more. Naruto made a guess at who was one of the missing ones. Didn't matter though, it was up to Izuku to improve his quirk now, and Naruto wasn't going to help any more than he had to. So, what does your quirk do? Something involving your whisker marks. Naruto blinked and looked to see somebody talking to him. He looked around in confusion for a moment, not seeing the person speaking. That was, before he noticed a sleeve peek out from his desk. A floating female UA uniform stood up in front of him and the left arm waved at him. Ah, your quirk is invisibility. Naruto Uzumaki, nice to meet you. Naruto extended a hand to the girl. Uniform had boobs and was thus a girl, not to mention she had a cute voice. It was an odd experience when he felt her small hand on his, even though he couldn't see it. You'll see my quirk soon enough, don't worry about it. Naruto waved off her question. He would rather not say his quirk, seeing as Foxman was still something people were seeing in the news. He would rather not explain on his first day of school that he had done illegal hero work. Ah. That's no fair, by the way, I'm Toru Hagakure, I'm seat 16. The bubbly girl introduced herself to him. He couldn't see it, but she had to be smiling. You see mademoiselle, I would have scored first with my Poussant quirk, but I had the need to use the bathroom. Seat 1 spoke, and Naruto could see through Toru's face to see it was a showy boy. A very angular face with swept blonde hair and angular blue eyes, with a V-shaped mouth. He wasn't tall, about 168 centimeters in height, not that big in muscle either, of which he didn't really have anything there. He was speaking to Seat 2, aka, Naruto's girlfriend Mina as the girl eagerly listened to him talk. Man, you must have a cool quirk then Aoyama. Mina spoke, and Naruto looked down at his phone. Duh, he had a list of his classmates on his phone, sent to him by Recovery Girl as a personal favor to him. Naruto was bad with names, so he had asked for the list so that he didn't forget anyone's names and make bad impressions with everyone. Seat 1, Yuga Aoyama. Seat 2, Mina Ashido. You turn into a kitty. Toru asked him as he guessed that she pointed at his whisker marks. Nope. Naruto popped the P in nope when he spoke. Seat 3, Tsuyu Azui, perhaps the smallest person in the class at less than 5 feet. She had a rounded face with large eyes and a rounded mouth as well. With her green hair, long but rounded on top, she kind of resembled a cute frog. Her hands were visibly larger than the hands of most everyone in the class actually. Considering she had a small body in general, the school clothes didn't do a great job at showing boob sizes thanks to their looseness. It made her hands actually look kind of cute. She had to have an animal quirk, maybe frog or something like that. Seat 4 was missing at the moment, and the same was said about seat 5, both of those seats next to each other were empty. You have the power to shoot lasers from your whiskers. Toru guessed again, not noticing that Naruto was looking through her and around at the rest of the class. Nope. Seat 6, Mashirao Ajiro, a boy about Aoyama's size, but much more muscular than the skinny boy was. He likewise had blonde hair, but small black eyes, and his quirk was easily able to figure out based on the very large muscular tail he had, a tail that ended with fur at the end. Good quirk for battle. Seat 7, Denki Kaminari, another blonde only with a black lightning bolt in his short spiky hair. He wasn't super muscled, a small amount of fat, but decent muscle as well. He gave off a rather cool aura about him as he turned and talked with seat 8, Naruto's own friend Eijiro Kirishima, and based on appearance, Naruto would say he had an electrical quirk. Don't guess kitty again. Naruto pointed out when he felt an invisible figure poke his face. Doggy. Nope. Seat 9, Koji Koda, was a large boy with a malformed-looking head that was shaped like a rock. He had a very wide body, being a good combination of fat and muscle, giving him a brutish look to him. Looking at his shy and nervous face though, Naruto could tell that he had troubles with people. Naruto didn't know if his appearance was quirk-related, or if he just inherited it from a parent. Not all inhuman looks had anything to do with quirks after all. Seat 10, Rikido Sato, was all muscle though, massively bulky muscle that sadly Naruto could see meant he had very little speed to him. Not to mention, because of his body type, he wasn't built for stamina either. He was large, but he had a rather goofy face with big lips that did give him a friendly aura about him. He had to have a strength-related quirk though, based on his appearance. Good hero material. Seat 11, Mizo Shoji, perhaps the tallest guy in the class. One of the few taller than Naruto was, with his body clearly being the result of his quirk. He had size arm appendages, with flesh webbing between them, and a long angular skull with gray hair that covered his right facial features. Only his left eye was visible, because he wore a mask to keep his face hidden. He could be a good fighter, but his appearance would be scary for kids who weren't used to those with mutated features. So, not a kitty or a doggy, these whisker marks are gills, and you breath underwater. Toru guessed as she grew a little more audibly confused. His quirk was so hard to guess. Then he would be suffocating right now. Kyokajiro, my quirk is earphone jack. Seat 12 introduced herself to him when she saw the conversation happening between Naruto and Toru. She was both slender and petite, having a pretty narrow body. She had narrow uninterested eyes, and uneven short purple hair. Her ears extended with plug earlobes, and her hair had sound wave marks in it. Naruto, right, what hero recommended you? She asked, since she had heard that part too. Not a ton of students were in the school on recommendation, since heroes didn't like to put their reputations on the line for children. A couple, so I better live up to their expectations. Naruto pumped his fist and gave an enthusiastic smile. He wasn't in a position to give names right now. Secret then, cool. Kyoka spoke with a small smile, a secret was just something that made her curious about it. Your quirk isn't related to your whisker marks, huh? She asked as she pointed at his face. Kind of, when I use my quirk they stay on my face, kind of. Naruto didn't know what the deal was with his whisker marks. He had them as long as he could remember. Seat 13, Hantasiro, tall and lanky. He had super lean muscle, but his muscle was seemingly built for pure speed and almost no power to it. His arms were on the weak side, with his legs having more muscle. He had lengthy black hair, and a plain face with a large toothed smile. Naruto noticed his elbows and his sleeves bulging out, so he had a quirk that used his elbows. He was chatting with Kirishima and Denki in front of him. Scars from the past, marking you for a grande destiny, supported by those who regret long-gone mistakes. Seat 14, Fumikage Tokoyami whispered as he glanced back at Naruto. His head was, oddly enough, shaped completely like a raven head. He had red eyes though, and a yellow beak, but teeth were visible when he spoke. His neck was even red, but from the shoulders below he was completely human in appearance. He seemed built for neither speed nor power, so Naruto guessed his quirk was distance-based, and he didn't need to use his body a ton. Nobody but Naruto and Kyoka, both who had enhanced hearing beyond the normal, heard what he said. Scars, nice. Kyoka poked Naruto's face with a teasing grin, and Tokoyami lowered his head in shame when he realized they heard him. Naruto laughed nervously. Not scars, born with them. Had them when I was born, apparently my brother and sister had them too. Naruto said with a rub to the back of his head. You have siblings, that's so nice. He said had. Kyoka didn't point that out though, but she didn't seem like she was going to say anything about it to Toru either, and Naruto nodded to her thankfully. She allowed the subject to drop. He didn't like talking about it. Naruto gave Seat 15 a glare when he noticed that familiar red hair. Seat 15, Shoto Todoroki, the son of the hero Endeavor. Half white hair, half red hair, with a brown eye and a blue eye. He had a decent blend of bulk and lean, but he wasn't built for physical punching power, but considering what his quirk was, he didn't need a ton of that. His left eye had a burning red scar all over it, and that had Naruto curious enough he stopped glaring for the moment. Seat 16 was Toru herself. Then there was Seat 17, Katsuku Bakugo, the guy was already showing off, another guy with blonde spiky hair, only his eyes were super narrow and red. He had a powerful frame, and Naruto had seen his explosion-related quirk in the news before. He had a cocky smile on his face though, and Naruto narrowed his eyes for a moment when he looked him. This boy was different than the rest of the class. Seat 18 was Izuku. Naruto himself was Seat 19, and finally there was the girl who sat next to him. Seat 20, a girl who was like himself and got in on recommendation. Momo Yayorosa was the tallest girl in class, and was actually taller than most of the boys in the class too. She had a different body from the rest of the class, her body was far more mature than the rest of the girls. Surprisingly enough, for a girl that got in on recommendation, her body was both physically fit looking, but she seemed like she had a little bit of fluff on that muscle. She had a good, attractive body, a friendly face, black hair, and cat-like black eyes, and she generally seemed like a friendly person. She had the makings already of a good hero, but he was curious about why she had a bit of extra fat on her body, if she took such good care of herself. Class is about to start, let's talk later, show me that quirk of yours. Kyoka told him as she started to walk back to her chair. Toru gave off a pout aura though he couldn't see a pout. I'll see your quirk soon enough I guess. Toru spoke as she sat back down, and her jacket leaned forward, her head thudding against the desk. Naruto smiled to himself as he saw class was going to start in a few minutes. What was keeping Izuku, Tenya Ida and Ochako Uraraka, Seat 4 and 5? Oh well, they would show up before time was up. Chapter 17 Physical Tests. Shota Aizawa. The hero known as Eraserhead by others, a very lazy and tired-looking man that seemed like he would drop dead at any second. The teacher of Class 1A, wearing a full black bodysuit with a long white scarf wrapped around his neck several times. Long unkempt hair, and tired-looking black eyes with a very scruffy face. The guy didn't give off the aura of a hero that many had come to expect, no, instead he gave off the look of somebody that was homeless. The second he entered the room, he had told them to get changed into their gym uniforms provided, and head to the grounds. He already had Naruto's interest. Here at UA, we believe in a freestyle education, and we teachers follow this to the letter. I won't waste your or my time with the useless stuff. Today, we're going to be testing your quirks. Shota walked in front of them and picked up a ball, before he tossed the softball to Naruto, who was standing at the back of the class. Naruto blinked when the ball had been thrown to him, and some students looked at him. Softball throwing, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, endurance running, grip strength, side-to-side stepping, upper body training, seated toe touch, All basic middle school tests to determine national health averages, and isn't rational. Shota sent Naruto a pointed look when he spoke about not being rational. Oh, right, the teachers knew who had what quirk in their classes, so Shota already knew that Naruto made illegal use of his quirk on a regular basis. Yeah, he was a pretty non-rational person by those standards. I see, he's going to have us test these with our quirks, fun. Naruto thought as he started to step forward when gestured to the circle. You don't have middle school records, so you'll be the test dummy, throw the ball without your quirk. Don't leave the circle. Shota spoke to Naruto as Naruto stepped into the circle. Naruto took position, before he winded up. When he threw, several people looked surprised. Without his quirk, this bastard beat my quirkless record. Bakugo thought as he grit his teeth upon seeing how far the ball went. While most people were just surprised at the physical distance of the throw, Izuku was actually one of the few who weren't surprised. Others were Mina and Kirishima. Awesome dude. 252.7 m. Shota held up a distance recorder that showed just how far Naruto threw the ball, which got Naruto to frown. That isn't as far as I was hoping. Naruto was going to have to increase his training if he was going to get stronger. While his record was amazing for others, to him, this kind of strength for his base form wasn't good enough. He was going to have to increase his training another 5 times in intensity. Now, use your quirk. Shota spoke, and Naruto raised a hand. Naruto sighed. Well Toru, you're getting your answer now, and I'm going to say this once. Naruto started to transform, his uniform actually growing with him. Naruto went to his 3-tail form and towered over everyone around as he stood up to his full height. He glanced down at his classmates. Don't call me Foxman, that isn't what I want my hero name to be. Naruto stated to them as he was given the next ball to throw. The ball was so small, he literally just held it with the tip of one of his claws, balancing it. Oh, he's not a kitty. Naruto's sweat dropped as he pulled his arm back, and this time when he let the softball fly, it didn't stop for a great long time. His massive size granting him as large advantage in strength, and with his long arms, he was able to gain more throwing advantage. So when the ball went far enough that nobody could see it anymore, Shota actually waited and looked at his reader for a moment, before he held it out to show everyone. 5,975.5 m. I lost my balance on the ball at the last second, that was harder to throw than I thought. Naruto looked in the direction of the ball with a frown. Sure, he had thrown it further than possible for anyone that wasn't using a quirk, but with his quirk he should have thrown it further. It was just way too hard for him to throw something as small as a softball with his massive hands. We can use our quirks for these tests. Awesome! Mina shouted at the top of her lungs. Kirishima, who knew her quirk, tapped her shoulder. You melt things, your quirk isn't really going to help you with throwing. Kirishima whispered to her, trying to remind her that she would sooner melt the ball than throw it far. Not to mention, other than running, her quirk didn't enhance her physical abilities or give her many advantages in those areas. Then again, Mina was already very athletic on her own, quirk or not. She was usually head above shoulders when compared to most others. Hope nobody got hit by that. Toru pointed out when Naruto stood nearby her. He threw that ball several kilometers away, there was no mistaking that it had left the school grounds, and might have hit something. Naruto, upon hearing her, wondered where the ball had landed. In 3 years, you're hoping to become heroes, are you expecting this to be fun and games? Okay, then let's add this, last place will be considered hopeless and I will personally expel them. Shota spoke with a downright deadly look on his face. He flipped his hair out of his face, and gave them all the most menacing smile he could. A few students raised eyebrows. That seems like a motivating lie. Momo crossed her arms under her bust, coming to the conclusion that he was lying to motivate them. Of course, she noticed most students around her seemed suddenly very worried about their chances. More than likely those with quirks that didn't allow them to increase physical abilities very much. Not to mention, everyone was now suddenly competing with each other to not get kicked from the school, so they were all enemies now. Heh. Naruto let out a very small laugh when he realized Shota was lying about the last place part. Yet, he wasn't completely lying either. He's going to expel anyone he thinks is hopeless, regardless of their scores. He expelled an entire class not long ago. Naruto put his hands in his pockets and leaned forward. Suddenly, nobody cared about Foxman when now their futures as heroes were being placed on the line. The first day of school, and they were already being tested with such high stakes to them. Truly, this was a fitting school for those who wanted to be heroes, and only those who had figured out the lie had massive grins on their faces, or were showing true confidence. Well, them and those who were just that arrogant. You're a fox, what do you say exactly? Toru poked Naruto's cheek again, and her tone was cheeky. She seemed to be the only one who was trying to distract herself from the horrors that could lay ahead. This is the hero course of UA, welcome to a harsh 3 years. Shota spoke with a short, yet somehow evil laugh. He would make a good villain. That bastard right there, he's got a fucking powerful quirk. I thought this was just going to be a class of people with quirks that couldn't hold a handle to mine, yet this bastard has a fucking damn cool quirk. Bakugo glared death at Naruto, not that Naruto noticed. He hated the fact that he was forced to admit that there was somebody in the same class with him that had such an amazing quirk. This class was just supposed to be filled with people that would make him look greater in comparison, rocks on his path to the #1 hero spot. Naruto glanced and scratched his face. Man, I can't wait to show off. Kirishima wrapped an arm over Naruto's shoulder, with Mina joining in as they all started to line up to go and do the events planned for them. Mina looked a little nervous, to be honest. Her athletic abilities aside, her quirk wasn't great for this kind of thing. She was going to have to use mostly her own innate physical abilities, unlike others who could use their abilities to get better scores. Naruto glanced at Mina for a moment, and he noticed. You'll do great. Naruto spoke confidently, and Mina's face relaxed at his words. Yeah, thanks Naruto, you're awesome. Toru shouted as her sleeves raised in the air, and she jumped up and down. Apparently, she had taken his words for herself. She wasn't the only one that took his words wrong though. Even Kirishima pumped his fist up into the air, and showed excitement as he literally gave off an energetic howl. Not going to let you down if you believe in me that much. Wait. I was talking to. Naruto stopped when Mina placed a finger on her lips and winked at him. She knew he had been talking to her, and that was all that mattered. If the invisible girl and Kirishima wanted to use his words as encouragement, let them. She didn't see the harm in not correcting this misunderstanding. Naruto sighed, and smiled down at her as she moved so that she was standing right next to him. You've got a point. Naruto was just waiting for things to be his turn. He had a quirk that was great for this kind of thing. Such an obvious lie. Todoroki started his stretches, having taken a few moments to figure out where the lie had been. Izuku didn't look as uncomfortable with this as Naruto thought he would. Right, he can control his quirk better, but he still seems pretty nervous. Naruto thought with a small smile, before he became serious when he noticed that it time his turn to do the next event. Event 1, 50-meter dash. The two-tailed form is the fastest one for short distance, better switch to that one. Naruto transformed his body and leaned down, tensing his legs for a massive start. For this event, people were placed side by side with another person in the class. It kind of made him feel a little competitive, considering that he was running next to that man's son. Todoroki just got ready, a light frost covering part of his body. The small race started. Naruto crossed the distance nearly instantly with his larger body's greater strides, and because Naruto chose to run on all fours, he was able to use the most of his animal features. 1.01 seconds. Damn it. I need to get faster. Naruto transformed back and frowned, and to the few that heard him say those words, jaws could only drop. Should have taken less than a second. Naruto punched his fist into his hand, pumping himself up to increasing his training the second that he had any free time. Todoroki, 4.89 seconds. Event 2, Grip Strength. Dude, what are you, a monster? Denki shouted when he saw the machine that was reading Naruto's grip strength, and Naruto could only really use his one-tail form for this one, since the machine was too small for any other form to use. 906 kilograms. Damn it. 2 kilograms short of a ton. Naruto had high expectations for this event, since he had always wanted to brag about grip strength. Denki backed away from Naruto a little. Scary training monster. Event 3, standing long jump. This almost isn't a fair competition between us, I hope you do well though. Momo gave Naruto a small nod. Growing out of her body, as she slightly lifted her shirt to show her stomach, came a small trampoline that she stood on top of to increase her jumping distance. Naruto grinned. That looks pretty fun. My quirk was designed for these kinds of physical tests. I'm honestly excited to see all the ways everyone uses their quirk creatively for these things. Naruto spoke as he transformed up to the highest form he had without losing control of himself. He absolutely towered over Momo as he stood in his four-tail form. She jumped first, and got a couple of meters out of her jump. Then Naruto jumped, and he crossed the entire sand pit with his jump. Surprisingly though, this was the one test so far that Naruto's score hadn't been the highest. He crossed the entire pit, but so did several other students. This time the record went to Bakugo, as he used his explosions to continue propelling himself as far as he wanted to. Event 4, sidestepping. Not transforming. His partner for this one asked as he was stared at, stretching his legs for the test. Won't help, my feet turn into a combination of paws and human feet in my larger forms, so I don't get a speed boost for this event. Naruto looked at Tokoyama as a large dark demon-like bird shadow came from his body, and wrapped its arms around his waist. It helped him step from side to side with increased speed by physically moving him. Thankfully, Naruto had great legs, and was able to keep up and stay among the top students for this one. Naruto frowned when he saw Mina nearby, actually doing better at him at this exam, before he sighed. He should feel happy she was doing so well. Event 5, throwing. Whoops. I can't beat that score. Naruto noted as one of the girls who had been almost late for class, Ochako Uraraka, threw the ball after applying her quirk to it, and it didn't stop. He didn't have to take this test, since his score was already recorded. This girl blew his score, which had been the highest score, out of the water. Infinity. She negated gravity on the ball, and when she threw it, the ball would continue and go on forever and ever. It would forever continue, until it hit something in space, be it a sun, a planet, a moon, or whatever else that would stop the ball. It wasn't really her physical strength, but the score was still damn impressive. Event 6, endurance running. Naturally, Naruto was able to run the distance in record times, with only a single other student coming even close to his score this time. Tenya, and thanks to the engines in his legs, was able to run the long distance they were given nearly as fast as Naruto was able to in his two-tail form. Naruto had crossed the finish line, and only 21 seconds later, Tenya had crossed it. The boy actually looked at his own legs with some disappointment. Brother, this test should have been mine as well. Tenya seemed to hold himself up to the highest standards as well. Naruto liked this guy. Event 7, upper body training. Surprisingly, Naruto was paired with Mina this time, and she just stared up at him in his four-tail form as he lifted, while Naruto lifted entire buses over his head with rather ease. Nobody was really able to compete with that score, since none of their quirks really gave the massive strength his had. It is actually unfair competing against quirks that include turning into giants. Mina complained as her score looked pitiful against her boyfriend's. Sure, she actually scored amongst the highest among the girl, with only Ochako beating her by making the weights weigh nothing, but it was not good for her image to compete next to the guy lifting a great many tons, instead of the small weights most of them were doing. Naruto glanced down at her. Sorry. Seriously, you need to be less strong. Mina complained as she smacked Naruto a few times on the foot. He needed to be a little more considerate to those who didn't have the ability to turn into a massive fox man. Event 8, seated toe touch. Almost everyone, without exception, was able to easily touch their toes, with only those with larger, bulky bodies, or fatter frames, having trouble with this. Event's over. Now that is over, let's show the scores. Your total scores reflect your performance in each event, not going to explain how it's calculated though. Shota turned on the holograph machine that would show their scores. Also, I was lying earlier. Shota spoke as the scores started to show up. It was just a rational decision to bring out all of your best. Shota continued onward. Way. A great number of students freaked out. You don't seem surprised either. Momo spoke to Naruto, with her, him, and Todoroki being among the few who weren't really surprised. Figure it out. She asked him. I'm good at reading people, though I'm not that smart. Naruto didn't mention something though. He also wasn't lying, he was going to expel anyone who he didn't approve of. Naruto looked at the shrewd man with narrowed eyes. Well, it was good everyone passed his test. After classes, he had training to get back to. Class 1A. Test rankings. 1 Naruto Uzumaki. 2 Momo Yaoyorozu. 3 Shoto Todoroki. 4 Izuku Midoriya. 5 Katsuki Bakugo. 6 Ten Yaida. 7 Fumikage Tokoyama. 8 Mizo Shoji. 9 Mashirao Ajiro. 10 Ajiro Kirishima. 11 Mina Ashido. 12 Ochako Urarika. 13 Koji Koda. 14 Rikido Sato. 15 Tsuyu Ajui. 16 Yuga Aoyama. 17 Hanta Siro. 18 Denki Kaminari. 19 Kyokajiro. And 20 Toru Hagakure. Chapter 18, Impressions are key. You know, other than that first testing stuff, classes have actually been pretty boring in comparison. Several people felt the same way obviously, and when Denki pointed it out, even Naruto had to agree with it mentally. He didn't say anything to Denki, since he wasn't part of that conversation. Naruto glanced over at Bakugo, who was glaring death at Izuku for some reason. Naruto didn't get it, but Izuku had his head on his desk to avoid looking at Bakugo, so there was a story there that Naruto wasn't told about. It looked like a fight could break out between the two of them at any moment, with the desire to fight being all on Bakugo's end. Naruto was going to keep his nose out of it, unless somebody's life was on the line. So Foxman dash. Toru, call me that again, and I will have Mina strip you naked and hide your clothes. Naruto told the invisible girl. He looked over at Mina, having said that loud enough for her to hear it. She turned around and sent him 2 thumbs up, showing that she was willing to follow through on that threat for him. After all, the girl was invisible, so it wasn't like she was going to get hurt by this punishment, or that anyone was going to get a free show from it. Either way, Toru's sleeve wrapped in front of her chest. Perv. She realized that nobody can see her naked. Momo had realized that Naruto only made that threat, seemingly, because the one that had spoken that name on him had been an invisible girl. You know though, she does have a point. When I saw the Fox Quirk using man on the news myself, I assumed he was just a pro hero that didn't want to be in the spotlight. Momo turned and faced towards Naruto. Naruto slumped forward as Toru sat on his desk. She was joined by Shiro as the lanky boy stood in front of Naruto's desk, and he smiled down at Naruto and gave a wide grin and a pat on the back. Thanks for saving my life by the way, that day when you saved people in the mall, that villain had his cannon aimed at me before you and your partner showed up. Let me know if you ever need help with something, I kind of want to repay the favor. Shiro spoke with a wider grin, it would seem grin was his default expression. Though, one couldn't mistake the gratitude that he was showing in his smaller body expressions. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Mina froze. Didn't know you were there, and I don't need anything. Naruto denied him with a wave of his hand. Mina stayed purposely silent, since Naruto had connections to the police through his uncle apparently. She didn't, so she could get in real trouble if people learned that she had done vigilante work with him. She would have loved to take credit for helping, and it irked her to stay silent, but she knew she had to. Anyway, I'm just in the wrong place at the right time. When I see a person in need, I have to do something. Naruto turned to Momo and waved his hand. Because of his fox form's large size and muscular frame, people assumed he was a fully grown adult when he took that form. It was an easy mistake to make. Shiro took his seat again, but he flipped his chair so that he was looking at Naruto. Most everyone in the class were talking in small groups at the moment. Man, don't downplay it. Shiro insisted on it. What Naruto did was noteworthy and deserving of praise. He needed to man up and accept what was coming to him, the praise of others. There was being humble, and then there was being awkward about it. I wish I could get noticed for doing awesome stuff. Toru pointed out to Naruto. He twitched. Honestly, I don't go looking for people to save. I really just constantly find myself around when villains appear. It's just bad luck there is never a pro around when the villains nearby strike. Anyway, I hate that nickname the news gave me. My hero name is going to be something cooler than that. Naruto turned to Toru and gave her a glare for saying the news name for him. Seriously, Foxman was such an uncool name. He didn't care about being seen as cool so much as he at least wanted to be known by a cool name in general. Something that he picked out himself, that inspired people to feel safe with him. Foxman just sounded like a big fluffy guy. So, do you howl at the moon like foxes do? Toru asked him as she poked his cheeks again. That's wolves. Momo and Zero both turned to look at her, saying that in time with Naruto face palming. The girl didn't know her animals very well if she thought foxes howled at the moon. Revelry in the dark. Either way, the teacher should be showing up, so if you would please take your own seat. Momo looked at Toru, who was still sitting there and poking Naruto. You could see where her finger poked him by where his skin indented, and her sleeves drooped as she seemed depressed. It was hard to tell though, until a whine escaped her. Also, in the future, you might want to take more care not placing yourself in a position to be a vigilante. Momo turned her lecturing gaze to Naruto. Moments later she turned forward, before she coughed into her hand. Also, thank you, when that giant villain attacked, my mother was in a car nearby. If you hadn't been there. Momo blushed when she realized her thanking him for his illegal actions went directly against what she told him not to do. Naruto waved her off. Toru poked him one last time before she went to her own desk. You don't dash. I have Dash All Might, in his Silver Age costume, rammed his body through the door like an almost normal person. His old cape billowing behind him as he made a loud and rather epic entrance for most of the students who had never seen him in person. Izuku instantly perked up, and many students were now paying rapt attention to the front of the classroom. Come through the door, like normal. Naruto looked at his Silver Age costume. It's really All Might, here to teach Dash. You idiot. Naruto shouted as he got up out of his chair and started to storm over to All Might. There was an intense silence that went over the entire classroom as Naruto approached the world-famous hero. Jaws were literally dropped as far as they could go, eyes bulging, when their fellow student walked to All Might and jumped up to smack him on the top of the head. All Might instantly got down in Caesar, shivering in what appeared to be fear. He's treating All Might like a child. Seriously, this is your first day as a teacher. What happened to that custom-fit suit that I had to go out of my way to pick up on the way to UA this morning, the suit that was for you to wear? Why the hell am I picking up a suit for you, when you're just going to wear something completely different? Naruto loudly lectured his uncle, the grown man forced to sit down. If the class had been dead silent before, they were pale, shaking, and completely shocked to their collective cores when they saw how the number one hero was being treated. Izuku was shocked, and he had seen this happen before. I just wanted to make a good first impression, surely my boy, you understand Dash. Texas Smash. Naruto got All Might on the top of the head with a downward punch. The bump that formed was comical in appearance, and Naruto looked down at All Might with the look similar to a lecturing parent once more. Don't my boy me. You and I both know you just love attention, and making flashy entrances. Now, you are going to go change into that suit I was forced to bring for you, and then you are coming back like a normal human being. Naruto pointed to the door with a strict finger. The balls on him. Kirishima had never seen Naruto do this to anyone, and he didn't know that his best friend knew All Might to this point. Even Mina, who knew that Naruto had connections to All Might through his uncle, was surprised to see the hero get treated like this. All Might got up and left the room with drooped shoulders. Even Bakugo, as angry as he was not angry and simply shocked as Naruto went back to his seat and sat down with crossed arms. Seriously, I'm not picking up suits for you anymore if you aren't going to wear them. God, why does he always have to be such a flashy attention whore? Naruto continued to grumble with a growing look of irritation. Nobody was able to say anything to Naruto, because he looked angry for a few more moments, before he took a breath and sighed. Seriously, you're a damn shitty teacher, don't go out of your way to make a fool of yourself to the other teachers at school. Naruto thought as he calmed down. He wasn't so much angry at the suit thing, he was a little mad, but he was much more angry at the fact that the man needed to at least look the part of a professional teacher. He was already bad at teaching, why make that even more noticeable? -5 minutes later. He's dressed in a suit now. The entire class thought as All Might came through the door in a completely normal way and stood at the teacher's test, dressed in a stripped brown suit, ready for teaching. Everyone looked at Naruto, and then at All Might as the man looked at Naruto, before he took a breath of relief when Naruto nodded his head in approval. With that done, he gave a wide smile like always and laughed. Ignore that, class. I'm friends with Naruto's uncle, so we've known each other for a long time. All Might covered for his and Naruto's secret relationship, since it would be best if nobody asked questions. Naruto blinked. Oh right, he had just snapped without thinking about what others would think. Everyone looked at Naruto. What he said? I'm going to be your teacher for your hero basic training class. In this class, I'll be putting you through training to mold you into heroes. It might be the first day of school, but let's start off with a bang. So I've chosen battle training. In accordance with your personal requests and your quirk registry, we've put together costumes for all of you to wear. All Might looked at Naruto as he spoke calmly, and Naruto gave him a sly thumbs up. He was doing good and being professional, and as the wall next to him opened up and revealed costume boxed with their seat numbers, Izuku pulled out a backpack with his, and Naruto was wearing his under his uniform, with his capes, shoes, and gloves in his backpack as well. The class looked excited. Costumes. The class was very excited. That's it for part 2. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.